Thank you for your compassion, your love, and clarity and all that. It's amazing. But my question focuses on, do we come into this world with equal access to being able to be in the vortex
Yes.
into alignment?
Yes.
And the reason I ask that is because, as a child, I grew
You're
up...
not going to make us change our mind.
Growing up with a mom that's a real worrier. I mean, she worried a lot. Now, I've worked with a lot of your material for a long time and never contemplated, didn't think about it at all, and am starting to see how there's an overlay of, when I look at life, that there's this template I look through that sometimes includes some parts of worrying.
Use different words. Instead of templates, say, I developed some vibrational patterns early on as I witnessed the behavior of my mother, and I carried them forward until I made the decision to leave them behind.
Yes. And I get a sense that in that causes sometimes sloppy thinking that I'd like to get away from. And
well, you could say that. That is certainly a byproduct of being up close to someone who worries. You can become a worrier. But there is another byproduct of someone who's focused upon problems, and that is, in your attention to problems, you create more solutions. So you develop a richer vortex early on, and which sort of defies our earlier answer, because you said, are we born with equal access to the vortex? Mm-hmm. And our answer was unequivocally yes. But from the moment you get here, you begin having a variety of relationships with your vortex. There are many people who would say, well, a feathered nest would be a much better environment in which to be born, because if I had a mother who didn't worry, then I wouldn't have learned worry. And we said yes, and you wouldn't have put nearly as much good stuff in your vortex solution-wise early on either. In other words, your expansion is about what you put there, and what you put there is about your exposure to life, you see.
And so now I put lots in my vortex, and I'm using the situation that caused me to put lots in my vortex to prevent me from going to my vortex and collecting some of it.
That's a rather common thing, isn't it?
Yes.
We talk about that. Here, let's look at it in this way. As your life causes you to expand, this is one of our favorite ways of describing what you just said. So a relationship with that particular person causes you to create a new and improved version, not just of your life experience, but even of theirs. You just can't have any exposure to anything without the other side of that wave emanating from you. When you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. It's just a byproduct of this contrasting creative world.
Right.
So you make a version of everything, and you put it in your vortex, a new and improved version, which, by the way, is the vantage point from which new generations are born. So it is a wonderful contribution you make to future experience. So you put it in the vortex, and now all day, every day, you have a choice of whether you participate with your vortex version or with the old news, current reality version. So what's really interesting is that so often the people, like a worrisome mother, or even an abusive mother, or even a really dysfunctional mother, the relationship with those kind of those situations cause you to create really dramatically improved vortex versions. But often your attention to the reality that caused you to create this expansion are the reason that you don't allow yourself to take the expansion. And that's why they feel like they were a problem to you. It's not because they are chronically displaying their trouble. It's that in your attention to their trouble, you are chronically defying your own expansion. Did you hear that? So the very people that are the biggest catalysts to your expansion are often the very people that you can't get your eyes off of or your mind off of long after they're gone. One day, in one of the very first gatherings, a woman was describing her mother and what an awful relationship she had had with her mother. And we played with her. We looked under the chair for her mother. We looked everywhere for her mother, because her mother was really responsible by her words of really causing havoc in her life. And it turned out her mother was nowhere around. Her mother wasn't in the room. Her mother wasn't even still in her physical body. Her mother was not in her experience today, but the vibrational patterns that she had developed, she was still using that as her excuse to not take the very expansion that her mother had caused her to accomplish. In other words, and it was hard for her. In fact, she didn't hear us during that conversation. It was hard for her to hear us say, your mother is the reason for your expansion, because she was so accustomed to beating the drum that my mother is the reason of my problems, and my mother is the reason that I didn't do better, and my mother is the reason I don't feel good. Mm-hmm. And we say, when you're not in the vortex, your mother is the reason you don't feel good. When you are in the vortex, your mother is the reason for a large part of your expansion. Mm-hmm. You just have to find the vantage point before you begin contemplating.
I'm sensing that that's subconscious. It's more of a subconscious energy that I'm not even noticing during the day, but it's affecting my view of life sometimes.
Well, here's the thing. Now, those were really good words, and so let's talk again about this variety show of vibrations that you've got going on, because you have the potential of really aligning with who you are, or the potential of really not aligning. And all through life experience, you've activated different things, and any of them has the potential of being activated again. It just depends on where you are and what you're thinking, what television program you just watched, what book you just read, what person you just conversed with. It depends on what you've just been recently giving your attention to, whether it's past, present, or future. What you've been giving your attention to gets a vibration going, and then that vibration gets another one going, and before you know it, you've got a little cadre of vibrations going, a vortex, so to speak, on whatever subject that you've lighted. So let's say that the potential of any of those vibrations is there, but you're aware of your vortex, and you're aware of your inner being, and most of all, you really want to feel good. So you've been deliberately focusing upon things that do feel good. So what's active within you is a good feeling thought, which begets another good feeling thought, which begets another good feeling thought. In other words, one just leads to another, until you find yourself in alignment with who you really are. This is a choice that a lot of people don't know that they can make. In other words, a lot of people don't know that they can choose what aspect of life that they focus upon. But even further, a lot of people don't realize that every person that they know is a plethora of possibilities, and that if you take one good feeling aspect of one good feeling relationship and you use it as your reason to focus until that's the most active vibration that's within you, now that active vibration begins to control, so to speak, your access to the other vibrations that are possible. So you just refine and refine and refine and refine until in time, it's not about them being subconscious or unconscious. It's about them being more active or less active. And rather than focusing upon the ones that you want to be less active, if you'll focus upon the ones you want to be more active, the more active will drown out. The more active will be more present, more predominant, more forward, more your point of attraction. So what happens is, it's like wanting to feel good, so focusing, and then feeling good because you focused, and then because you maintained it, now you begin attracting around it. So now there's things to observe, and now you're observing good things, so you're focused, and now you're focused, so you're attracting good things. In other words,
building effect.
Law of attraction will support you in anything you choose, and will make it true. Law of attraction will make anything you choose true. Esther will say, well, Abraham, I know I shouldn't be thinking about this, but it's true. And we say, there are a lot of things that are true that you don't want to experience. Focus upon the things that are true that you do want to experience, because law of attraction supports you and whatever your predominant vibrations are. So we like this conversation in that we've gone to a new place, in that we are calling thoughts rather than subconscious or unconscious. We're calling them in the foreground or in the background. In other words, that is a, and from that we can say they're more active or less active, or more dominant or less dominant. And what a belief is a really dominant thought. So a belief is an expectation that is a really strong point of attraction. A belief or an expectation, which are really strong points of attraction, are just thoughts you keep thinking. They're just practiced thoughts. So what a lot of people say is, well, but it's easier to think the thoughts I've been thinking than it is to think new ones. And we say, but if your criteria will be, it feels better to think better feeling thoughts. In other words, if instead of it being easier, if you say it feels better, then that helps you to focus.
I understand that, and that's very